podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, Pod fans. Tom here. Just to say that at the start of this podcast, I whittled, I think that's a technical term, a wire in front of my microphone and managed to dislodge it. So the first little bit of my sound is just me through my MacBook speakers, which isn't great. Really sorry about that. I'll make sure it won't happen again in future.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Hello everyone, hope you had a lovely, restful and hopefully not as hectic as my Christmas and festive period and etc and so on and so on. And many commiserations of course for those who had to go back to work today, which is Friday. This is just one day, eh? This is my first year in 6-7 years. I haven't been working over the Christmas period because of my new office. It's all closed, which is absolutely great for this time. So yes, full of Christmas cheer, love in our hearts after watching the Gavin and Stacey finale. Oh, how good was that? And maybe bored of our families a little bit. And we're here tonight for our final pod of 2024, which we're billing as a short one, Sam. But we'll see how we roll along. Thanks for joining us once again. I know time is really, really tight, especially with this kind of quick deadline, hence the quicker pod today. Joined, of course, by Sam. Good Christmas, mate.
Yeah, hectic Christmas. We had my family over for the Christmas period, so very, very busy, but we all are big Southampton fans, so at least we all commiserated together on Boxing Day. But yeah, all very peaceful, very relaxing. I hope if you are listening out there, you had a very similar peaceful, relaxing, exciting, whatever you wanted to get out of this festive period. And a very warm welcome back to, I think it is the final WGTA of the year. So yeah, welcome back. It should be a shorter one today, but one we're very much looking forward to as always. We are, as always, who got the assist. On today's pod, team updates quickly. We are still halfway through a couple of games. I'll explain exactly where, just so we date the pod in a bit. But we've got team updates to provide. Due to the quick turnaround, it's just a preview of the weekend ahead. Obviously, kickoffs on Sunday, so it's a little bit delayed rather than a Saturday deadline, although we've all lost track of the days of the week, let's be honest. Our reactions to the game week thus far, we both took hits, I believe, so were those hits worth it? Then straight into the preview and the big talking point for some, angry Bruno owners deciding where to go next. Then, of course, best transfers, best captains, and bold claims ahead of Game Week 19. It is Friday, the 27th of December. Brentford, Brighton, and Ipswich, Arsenal are playing behind us. So we'll let you know how that's going. I think it's 1-0 at half-time for Arsenal at home to Ipswich, and still 0-0 after about 70-odd minutes in the other game. For now, though, shall we have a look at the Game Week reviews?
Yeah. It's not been one for the ages thus far. We'll see how it goes, obviously, in the Arsenal game. But yeah, it's been pretty quiet, hasn't it?
Yeah, pretty quiet. It's going to be, I think, unless something crazy happens in the last few minutes of either of these games or in the second half of the Arsenal game, a pretty quiet and generally, I'd say, fairly forgettable week. I'm on 52 points net, having taken a -4 for Trent and bringing in Mbeumo as my Saka replacement. Lots of you out there obviously have been burnt by your Saka replacement. We'll go through a lot of them in a moment. I went with Mbeumo thinking that he's my solid 90-minute man. I couldn't quite afford Bruno if I wanted Trent as well. So I went for someone a little bit cheaper, but gives me a lot of the similar benefits that Bruno has. And although there are some tough fixtures ahead, they're all at home. And Brentford at home are a completely different beast. And I backed someone with great minutes on penalties, on set pieces to do the business for me and just tick along safely. And I think over this period, I just wanted to solidify that midfield and make sure that I had a person I can rely on. Elsewhere, though, not a ton to shout about. 6 points from Hall came in handy. We're still waiting on the Arsenal double, which I'm sure will come in the next 20 or 30 minutes of the pod. Trent, of course, was a little bit disappointing in terms of the output, but I think the underlyings look pretty decent. So I'm hoping that still pays dividends over the next few. Semenyo disappointed yet again. Palmer with the 10-pointer, very helpful, or well, I guess very helpful is a strong term considering he's around 100% EO. Isak scores yet again. Outside of that, not a ton to shout about. 52. It's currently a red, but a very slight one. And if the clean sheets hold for Arsenal, it will be a very slight green. So it's not one that I'll remember for a very long time. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, pretty similar situation for me. Did -4 here too. Took Odegaard in the end. Mentioned him last week and why I really liked him. Saw the lineup tonight and was a little bit a bit like, oh god, because Havertz and him and Rice at the midfield, but there's definitely some promising signs. Definitely seems to be kind of a few yards further forward in shooting positions. For example, was screaming for it at the edge of the box when the Trossard ball came in that Havertz eventually converted. So hopeful that one's going to end up being quite good. I think when Partey is back in the team, hopefully that's going to elicit something a little bit different. We shall have to see what happens with that one going forward. And I took a -4 in the end too. So last week I said it's a bit icky. If I want to get Trent, I've got to remove Robinson after literally 1 week in my team. I wasn't too minded to do it. I think it was kind of one of the things where I said on the pod, I think last time, Sam, that I'm going to give it a couple of days, maybe think about it. And then one thing I didn't note was the price changes. And I got back, was uploading the pod, and I clicked onto live FPL and I saw that he was rising or projected to rise. He didn't actually rise until the next day, which is Christmas Eve. But at that time, he was projected to rise. And I suppose I was kind of pushed to make a decision then. And I decided that he and Salah were the two Liverpool that I wanted, assuming I'm in an assistant manager slot. And I couldn't take the risk, really, of not getting Trent at that time. So, yes, I had to make that sort of icky transfer of Robinson out to Trent to make it all work together. Odegaard came in as well for Saka. And it's been all right, as you kind of said. Also got the Hall clean sheet, also got the Isak goal. Mitoma's got a blank, so he's going to be gone this week for Ismail Sarr, and Palmer and Salah basically irrelevant. So basically the whole week has been Isak and Hall getting points.
Up the tune.
Yeah, exactly. That's literally what it's been thus far. And so let's see what happens with the rest of this game. Can imagine some BS Ipswich goal going in at some point, can't you?
It's inevitable.
Yeah. And it feels like one of those weeks. So a small red down to about 500k or so, but we'll see. I think the green, unless Odegaard really goes off in the second half, is probably going to be again curtailed a little bit if that does indeed happen as well. But hey, we roll on and we march on indeed into the Gameweek preview, because we are going to keep it short tonight. And this breaks down as always into the knee-jerk, best transfers, bold claims, and the best captains for the week ahead. And the knee-jerk this week is, as Sam mentioned earlier on, I think that Bruno was, if not the most popular, one of the most popular incomers for the Saka injury. And of course, new owners were rewarded by him. I thought, what was he doing, Sam? I just don't know. On a yellow as well. Like I saw today that like he got two red cards or something in his entire career at Sporting, and this year he's got 3 already. Like, it's absolutely wild, isn't it? And Bruno owners, you can't be too upset, because at the end of the day, like you can't legislate for a player effectively losing his head. But I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, to just seeing your player come in, that happen. And I know there's maybe a bit of maybe people might think, oh, I'm just going to roll it or whatever, but they got Liverpool after the Newcastle game. So I don't know, it just feels like an instant sell, doesn't it, for a lot of people? And one of those that you just got to just deal with, even if it's really annoying.
Yeah, the timing's not ideal, especially because the pin was a bit split this week as well. Lots of people have been flocking to other assets. It wasn't all on Bruno. So if you have gone there, I think he was probably marginally the preferred option out of the Saka replacements for those who had the money to do so. But there were other options on the cards. And I think luckily this week, none of them, other than maybe Anthony Gordon to an extent, but he didn't really go big, have gone off yet. But considering now you've got the red card, that's one extra transfer to catch up and almost make that decision once again. And a lot of the options that were on the cards last week almost have been taken off of the table now. I think the Liverpool boys, unless you've already gone there, you don't really trust them enough moving forwards because the minutes are fairly sketchy. Foden as well did actually look fairly lively. I wouldn't completely take him off the table. but generally speaking, City don't look that functional right now. So yeah, there's limited options there, and I think we are going to end up almost narrowing down onto one player or a couple of players. And unfortunately, it just means that you're an extra transfer behind. And look, I think Bruno's been fairly unlucky to get sent off 3 times this year. A couple of them were fairly questionable, but
Yeah, one was rescinded, wasn't it?
One was rescinded, yeah. And I think overall, a lot of it is down to him trying to be a good leader and leading from the front and putting his best foot forward and getting really stuck into everything. But obviously, sometimes that can manifest itself in a negative way, and it will take it too far. There have been, obviously, like you said, some weaker incidences, and other referees might not have given it, but we are where we are. It's only a 1-game ban, but the timing doesn't really work out that nicely. And I think considering the price point, it's probably one that you would look at quickly moving off of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if there's a big problem in your team elsewhere, I'm not sure what that would be right now. Maybe goalkeeper. I think that it's probably best to move on, especially with all that money locked up in the Liverpool game coming in. This is mentioned in the chat that United are so far off it, and I completely agree with that as well. I don't know, it's just so inconsistent right now. And I said last week that one of my reasons for not going with Bruno, just don't fancy him in general as an FPL asset. I have said that since the start of the season, but one of the reasons I didn't want to go with him was because I've got Ahmad already. I didn't want to kind of double down on a very inconsistent team, but yeah, for that money, it's definitely worth moving on. And I suppose Anthony Gordon, Sam, is the one. I know that a couple of people like Dan. FPL Gas last week, so it was kind of a flying the flag for him, and of course he scored that early really nice goal in the Newcastle game against Villa. I don't know, it kind of feels like the options have kind of maybe narrowed a bit down to him, an Arsenal player against Brentford next week, Flecken injured, me injured, a plethora of crockery over in West London at the moment. I don't know, it does feel like the options have sort of narrowed a tiny bit. I don't know. I've definitely seen, for example, Nick of this parish was suggesting that maybe he just go back in for his man Diaz, reasoning he didn't play Leicester, therefore he should start the West Ham game, for example. It really does feel like that at the moment. It feels like it's very much a case of trying to read the tea leaves on players like that, or just taking in those sort of 90-minute men, likes of Odegaard perhaps. I'm sure Martinelli probably going to have very decent minutes now, or someone like Gordon you'd imagine will have decent minutes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like I said, I also wouldn't be taking Foden completely off the table either. Anthony Gordon now seems a more and more sensible, logical pick. The data is actually really decent over the season. I think he's running at almost 0.6 XGI. And he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit up until now because Isak's just been taking all the headlines. And I think to an extent, there is an argument to say that Gordon will never be a must buy because Isak's going to hoover up the bonus points. He'll probably hoover up the majority of the chances being created for Newcastle. But if they're scoring enough goals, and they've scored, 11 in their last 3 now, including 3 against Villa, there might be enough to share around, and it might be okay to just pile in on double Newcastle attack. The next few fixtures on paper don't look necessarily the best, but reasonably speaking, in all of them, you can see them bagging at least a couple, considering the form they're in and the way their opponents upcoming are looking at the moment. So yeah, I wouldn't be scared off of Gordon whatsoever. He looks like a decent option. The other alternative option is you can just downgrade the position if you want. You can even leave the funds in your bank if you really need, as we'll probably start mentioning a lot more in the next few weeks. Assistant manager is coming, and you will be able to use that relatively soon now. So having that little bit of spare money aside for a rainy day for that chip usage might not be the worst idea. So there are some cheaper options out there. You can look at going all the way down to someone like a Ismaila Sarr and maybe taking money out of that position. And honestly, right now, it's not like there's a plethora of 8 to 7 million assets who are all really massively hauling right now. So possibly you might look at this as an opportunity to take some money out and keep it aside for that assistant manager chip around about game week 24 or 25, where we think Liverpool are going to have a double.
Yep. So I'm looking at Sarr this week from Matoma in sort of the mid-price area. I think he's really decent pickup for the fixtures that are coming. XGI of 0.55 per 90, which is good for that price, a top 30 sort of thing comfortably. But I would note that their fixtures have been a mixed bag thus far. Lots of personnel has been missing for Palace too, so you can only imagine that will kind of improve, go in the right direction, just because their fixtures are between 19 all the way to maybe kind of 31, 32. In fact, pretty decent. So he's been getting the minutes at the moment. Had a goal ruled out against Bournemouth, which was really nicely taken. Just went a bit early, was offside. But yeah, I think that would be absolutely fine as well. I think that there's definitely there's an interesting choice beholden to people. I think some of it actually may depend on what happens in the Arsenal game, just because with those injuries. If we see an Odegaard or we see a Martinelli, or indeed maybe a Trossard, Trossard's got the assist obviously early on, coming through with a goal, and then I think that may be where maybe the more reactionary crowd go, and that's kind of that's why we're talking about Gordon, because he's scored. But I think it's kind of stuff like that at the moment. It feels like a very sort of reactionary sort of time frame. But yeah, maybe thinking about it is that Southampton game coming up for Crystal Palace versus the Brentford game coming up for Arsenal. Those are the two that really would be flying high in my mind, at least for kind of where I'd be scoping out, where I'd be trying to kind of make some money. I think you can get to Odegaard still from Bruno. I think, I'm sure you can, in fact. So I think you've definitely got a few options there. I suppose maybe it depends. Sam, you rightly highlight the assistant manager, or it's better to say the assistant manager is coming and the arse man is coming, isn't it? That sounds a bit ominous.
That sounds dodgy. I'm not sure what that kind of pod.
Yeah, let's keep that away from the YouTube titling, or we'll be in a lot of trouble. Wrong sort of tube. But yes, I think that I think that either of those are pretty decent options, and Sarr may be the one that, Review, for example, because obsessed with me buying Eze, for example. If you can get there, back fit, on penalty, 50-50 chance of scoring a penalty, of taking a penalty. He and Mr. Mateta are neck and neck, aren't they? But yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm not going to overrule players from Arsenal at the moment. I didn't want to seem dismissive of them. I wasn't massively hot on Odegaard until you mentioned it last week. But yeah, I'm open to it for sure. With Crystal Palace, like you said, the options are definitely going to rise over the next few. I'm really keen on Daniel Munoz in the back line, if at all possible, but it seems low priority compared to maybe some of the midfielders you can be going for. If Eze's fit and fine, then looks like a great option. Obviously, you've got Ismail Assar with Southampton at home is a great jumping on point. And then, like you said as well, Mateta up top could come into the consideration, the zeitgeist over the next couple of weeks. Obviously not the greatest form leading up to this run, but the run itself could help bring the form with it. So it might be a little bit punty to maybe go one or two Crystal Palace, but I like it. I think the fixtures are there, and they, as a team, have looked much better recently too. So maybe there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, cool. So quite a lot of places you can possibly go with that one. Maybe there's something else here as well to discuss, which is maybe at this end of the road for Brighton assets. I mentioned obviously I'm looking to get rid of Matoma coming up. I think they've got Ipswich in 21 and in 21, which is kind of an okay fixture, I guess, to hold on for. But with the likes of Palace particularly coming into play, it feels like it's a good time to shift around some edge pieces. From Palace, I guess, you've got Henderson in goal. So Flecken owners or Fabianski owners, if he's your number one goalkeeper for some rean. Henderson's 4.4 penalty saving specialist. So a bit of a haul, but a potential haul for him every now and again. At the back, Munoz, who I sold in last week as being a bit of a goal threat, and you've sold in indeed over the last kind of couple of weeks. Sarr, who you've mentioned, and maybe Mateta up top, but we'll need to see kind of what happens there. There's another team as well, Sam, who we need to mention, Southampton, who have a good run of fixtures coming up. And there's one man who, had lots of chances. He did miss them all. But tall Paul Onuachu, Sam, 4.9. Could he be the starter under Uric? I mean, their fixtures are all right. But yeah, but there's a few areas at least where you can source some replacements, I suppose, right now. I mentioned Onuachu alongside Mateta because João Pedro owners, you're one of them. How are you feeling about him at the moment?
I mean, not great, not good enough, not bad enough. Sorry, to sell him for a Southampton forward. It must be said. Although I am in double Southampton at the moment. Yeah, look, João Pedro, in terms of the ability on the pitch, every week you can see, even watching the first half of the game this evening, I was thinking he's fantastic. I love owning him. Enciso should have scored a layoff from João Pedro, and then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But as people in the chat are rightly mentioning, goals have dried up really badly for Brighton recently in what was a good run of fixtures. So, look, it makes sense to be looking at getting rid of assets that aren't getting the points, but there's still a lot going for him. And when you look around at the other options at his price point, there's just honestly nothing I massively like the look of. And barring one or two forwards I don't already own, generally the forward line isn't something I'm massively keen on right now. So I think João Pedro, we assume he's still on penalties. No reason to think he's not. Getting good minutes. Now he's back to full fitness. It's 90 every week, pretty much. You've got to think it's going to come eventually, and probably when you least expect or want it to. So yeah, look, it's tough to sell him to anyone, and I certainly wouldn't be going out my way to buy him. But considering the price point and considering all of the other factors going for him and the lack of alternatives, and although jokingly, Tall Paul did look pretty decent against West Ham and against Liverpool earlier in the season. Honestly, please just don't do it yourself. Do not buy a Southampton player. It's just not worth it. So yeah, I'm probably just going to keep holding him until I can either find the money to upgrade to someone like Chris Wood, who's obviously a little bit more expensive, but worth the extra money, I would say, or someone else comes out from that 5.5 million bracket. But again, there's just no one I can really see that's that tempting.
A couple of suggestions in the chat. So Animations has said Pedro's got to be a sell now, thinking of Jesus maybe, 6.8. I mean, that's
a big upgrade.
Yeah, it's a big upgrade if you've got the money kind of hanging around. And a lot of people, because they've sold Saka and gone elsewhere than Arsenal, do have that slot open. I do anticipate that Jesus will be starting an awful lot for us going forward. I think it depends how it goes. It depends how it goes against Brentford. So Partey, I suspect, didn't play today. One, because it's Ipswich, and two, because of fitness. When he comes back into the team, it's between Jesus probably and Havertz for who sits out. I do think that potentially Havertz would miss this game. So maybe it's just the case that one of them, someone elsewhere, has also had a bit of a fitness thing, or in the red zone potentially.
Yeah,
which means that Havertz has been forced to play this one. So, I don't know. I don't mind that one. Chat Sport said maybe Jimenez. Raul spoke to James FPL. He of telling me that Raul would play Southampton fame. I'm kidding, James. Earlier about whether he's going to play Bournemouth, and the suspicion seems to be that Muniz, after scoring again, is probably going to be starting that one.
It's too competitive.
Yeah, it's up in the air as well for Ipswich then as well in 20. I just don't know whether I could say. I feel like I own Jimenez, and I think at the moment I basically see him as like, okay, fine, you sit on the bench for me, mate, and then when we get close to assistant manager, he goes for a 4.5 piece of you know what, and then to free up some money, because I'm happy in 3-5-2. I don't really care about having the first striker at the moment. It does feel like actually that we've gone from kind of having a plethora of strikers to now being a bit sort of like, I don't know anymore. Yeah, Dan said in the chat, Evan Nilsson or Cunha, all these sort of players hanging around. Like you could go back to Cunha, of course, who was in demand. Boona, some of his finest work today. Has,
outstanding! I can't believe how many people fell for that.
I know. I managed to catch several large outlets. I mean, there were a few grammatical errors, but yeah, one of those things that sort of Athletic wrote it. Even FPL flagged Cunha, apparently. So
no, really,
yeah. Sort of Mo FPL Trophy was saying, but yeah, if you, I'm not sure you can go back to Cunha. And to be fair, he has been kind of massively. He's the top over performer in the game at the moment. It's like 6+6 on goals minus X. Minus XG, which is just wild, really. But yeah, another one that you could probably consider, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's I think it's the right thing to do, really, if you own João Pedro, just to kind of hold on, and because it feels like there's not really an overwhelming case to go anywhere, especially around the price bracket.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's key to mention that this is one of those edge pieces, and it is taking up so little of your budget. You're not expecting the biggest returns from them. We in general have quite well allocated budgets towards our midfielders at the moment. We've got 2 premiums in there in a lot of cases, certainly in both of ours. And until recently, we had Saka there as well, taking up a lot of our money. So there are quite a few edge pieces that you probably shouldn't expect big returns from every single week. But the ones who are going to tick along nicely in the long term do tend to be the ones in the more attacking sides who get good minutes and who are on set pieces / penalties. And although he is on a historically poor streak at the moment, considering the point in which we all bought him, I do still think that he's more likely than a lot of the other forwards to start getting the returns again soon. And yeah, at the price point, I'm not really expecting miracles anytime soon.
Yeah, we have but due to that kind of squad structure, unless you're in Haaland, most of the time we do have kind of a pretty decent fifth midfielder. Be it an Ahmad, be it a Rodgers, be it an Enzo, that you can, for a variety of reasons, play. For example, I've got Ahmad this week. I don't feel great about playing him, to be honest, just because of lack of Bruno. But we shall see. I think that's kind of perfectly okay, and the Rodgers is perfectly okay to play as well. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of all right just to kind of hold him there and see what happens. I mean, obviously Fable penalty taking is always good, but Brighton, it feels like they kind of stopped the rot a bit tonight. I suppose the fixtures are okay. I mean, Villa still do look a bit tired, but do have Arsenal in 20. As I mentioned, got Ipswich and United in 21-22, which aren't bad fixtures really from an attacking point of view. Certainly, should be okay with that. João Pedro scored against United on the first week, didn't he? So I think certainly, he's the sort of player who can pop up at any time. It's been a bit disappointing from a positional point of view, and just a general sort of goal involvement point of view, hasn't it, for quite a long while? So I can completely understand the frustration. It's just a lack of options, which may make you think, hey, you know what? Especially if Venton's 5.5, I'm just going to leave him there and see what happens next. I don't really see where else people are going to be running to, honestly. So yeah, Bruno. To take it back to the top, I think owners should be getting rid. I think Sam agrees with me. Maybe you're looking at probably going down to a Sarr and then reassessing a Gordon or an Arsenal player. With Brentford being the walking wounded, definitely not Onuachu if you're looking to sell João Pedro. So, yeah, there's quite a lot kind of going on there. Other transfers going on thus far this week. Obviously, the game week's still in play, so not too much to discuss here. And Isaac rolling his way to being one of the highest owned players in the game, unsurprisingly. As we said last week, if you're looking to sell Saka or if you're looking to sell Bruno, don't own Isaac. Just get Isaac and just sleep comfortably.
Yeah,
that's the only advice we could ever give you. Acuna has been brought in second highest. Yeah, I mean, good luck to people going there. I just don't think you can. I do regret selling him, obviously. I wish I'd sold Matoma to finance Isaac rather than selling Cunha. But them's the breaks, does happen sometimes. Gordon, who we've discussed, being brought in. Palmer being brought in as well. Ola Aina, benefiting from the fantastic effects, basically, where if there's a defender to be sold, people just look at the top scoring defender and buy them. And I think a lot of people are selling like some Porro, for example, and Gvardiol too, and probably just going straight to Aina because he has scored most points amongst defenders. Saka being sold, Bruno's been sold by 200,000, both of them over the 200,000 mark. 123,000 people have sold Haaland. Definitely enough now. Oh dear, it's not been great, has it? And then Smith Rowe, and then Nicholas Jackson as well, being part of the ways with. I just wanted to meditate on Nicholas Jackson for a second, Sam, because it has been very disappointing, hasn't it? Since buying him for the Southampton game that he didn't appear in, despite being hooked at 70 minutes against Aston Villa. And since then, we've been rewarded with one goal, lots of very good sort of hold-up play, but equally lots of chances that you kind of think, you know what, he probably should be scoring that. But I suppose we both sort of said this about Jackson a little bit, and I mean, I certainly have, where he's the kind of player that you kind of wince watching him, and you just don't want to watch him. You want to just hear what the result is at the end of the game. And if he scored, you're like, oh, brilliant. If he hasn't scored, you're like, oh. But at least you haven't had to sit through what can sometimes be a very frustrating performance.
Yeah, he is one of those that you might not want to necessarily watch the full game, more just the highlights. And every now and then he will do something absolutely brilliant. I think he's really good with the channel running. He's very good at leading the forward line for Chelsea. And I don't see him getting dropped anytime soon because of his all-round play now. And he's a relatively complete forward in that sense. Obviously, though, he is still young. He will still make mistakes and he will still miss chances. There are flashes of those moments that we saw last season a lot more often, but they are creating a lot more for him generally. And I think whilst it's been a little bit of a dry patch, he's still a pretty decent forward to own and probably one of the better ones out there right now, unless you've already got, if you've got the forward line of Isak, Cunha, and maybe another, probably a João Pedro, someone like that, then there's no rush to be bringing in Jackson by any means until Cunha potentially gets the ban. But outside of Cunha, I think he's an absolutely fine second forward to own. It's been frustrating and the minutes could be better. Like you said, he's being brought off quite regularly around 70 to 80 minutes now. And frustratingly, there is the chance that when they play 3 games in a week or 3 games in 8-9 days, he does miss the middle one or get minutes off the bench. And I'm a little bit worried that that is about to happen against Ipswich. But I think you just roll the dice and you take the chance on that. I don't really think it's a massive priority to sell right now, with the fixture still looking pretty good on the horizon for Chelsea. And if you did, if Cunha had no ban coming, it would be a fairly easy one. But with that pending, it makes it very difficult to go there. Solanke's been fine, but not spectacular. And he rarely gets bonus points because all of the other Spurs assets also score or assist and do much more of the creative stuff. So his upside is fairly average. And then Chris Wood is on a bit of a barren patch as well at the moment, to be honest. So it's just the fact that, look, if loads of forwards were going off and doing really well, then João Pedro and Jackson would be bigger issues in my side. But there's just not a ton out there that I love. And in the meantime, I'm happy enough having both of them for their price points. And there's just not much more I do with the money elsewhere right now either.
I mean, the only one that potentially could come into thinking, if you do have some money rolling around, or you're just sick of Jackson, you've got him on fraud watch, as they say. Duran has tonight had his red card upheld. So Watkins' next 3 games: Brighton at home, Leicester at home, and Everton away.
2 in the league, I think, isn't it?
I was there a cup game in between.
I think so. Double check that, people, but I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere.
Okay, all right, but he could be one for the next 2 at least, and probably no one's going to be able to get to. And if you just fancy it, they've got the West Ham 3rd round game. I think I think that
right
for a red card. Yeah, for anyway.
So, double check.
So it's one of those, isn't it, where you look at it and you think, okay, he could be an option for you. Definitely be kind of one of those X template options. I know that there's certainly a bit of fatigue surrounding how similar a lot of the teams are at the moment. And as we kind of flagged a few weeks ago, it's just one of those where that's going to happen in this period. So if you are looking at Jackson and think, you know what, I just don't trust this guy, and I completely understand why, then fair enough. But I think you're right, Sam. It's just a case of just holding him through. Ipswich up next. Yes, it's a decent gap. And my cousin's a massive Chelsea fan for his sins. And he was saying that when Jackson went off and Nkunku came on, they just looked a completely different team, like lost their kind of shape a little bit. Jackson does a lot of the combative sort of off the ball stuff that Nkunku isn't as good at. So I think that we're, especially because they drop points, it probably does stand to reason that Jackson will play Ipswich, but you just don't know, and you've got to hope that if he does come off the bench, then that's absolutely fine. I think they've got Palace after that, Bournemouth and Wolves before they run to a really easy game against Man City in game 23. But one of those I'm kind of just happy to sit on for the time being, see what happens going forward. Is always a source of money, is always potentially a piggy bank you can smash, but I wouldn't be sitting there thinking, that's the source of what I'm going to be doing, especially because loads of people got loads of other issues going on right now. I feel like a lot of it is kind of a little bit reactionary. That's for sure. I mean, that's it really at the moment for all the transfers going on. Best bold claims this week. I think I'm going to say I haven't got this one, Sam.
No, no. It's unfortunate though, because on paper it looked like it could be a bit of a blockbuster week. It didn't quite pan out that way, nor did mine, by the way. I'll just quickly summarize mine. I went for Everton clean sheet against Man City. Obviously wiped out pretty early, but Everton once again a really strong defensive display, and to only concede one against City, obviously a number of impressive clean sheet performances against big opposition. Arsenal, Chelsea, I believe, were both clean sheets. Very, very impressive from Everton defensively. Obviously, Pickford with the save as well. It made no difference that the clean sheet didn't happen for him. He still hauled anyway. But no, still not a bold claim that's come through. And nor did yours, Tom.
No, I had 40 plus goals scored on Boxing Day game week. Just the 23 goals needed in the Arsenal Ipswich game. I don't think we're going to get there. Gabriel Jesus has just been subbed off as well. So he's hung over from his birthday, Sam. That's the issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to say that's a no for this week. And next week, where are we going?
Yeah, next week. I think you mentioned 120,000 sales of Erling Haaland ahead of Leicester. I wouldn't be selling him now. Like, I don't know who's still got him, honestly, but if you do, come on, it's Leicester. They look so open at the back at the moment. Their performances under Ruud van Nistelrooy are even weaker defensively than they were under Cooper. I think there's an opportunity there. And obviously, I'm not going to go there with any City assets, and I can't take a -8 or -12 to get to Haaland just for the sake of this game. But I can see him coming back with a bang in this one. Haaland hat-trick. Hat-tricks are always bold, aren't they, Tom?
Yeah, we can definitely have those. And I've just happiness hedged, to be honest. Didn't have much time to prepare for tonight's pod, unfortunately. So I've just gone for Cunha to score at least a brace versus Spurs, just because Spurs have got no defence whatsoever. So Dragusin came off as well, injured.
Yeah.
It looks like it could be like Basuma and Gray. I think Ben Davis still had a setback. So yeah, that defence is actually shot to pieces. Cunha to score at least a brace versus Spurs and deepen the misery, I suppose, from this week. Yeah, I feel like that could be.
What happens if he gets banned beforehand?
Then I have to text you something ridiculous 5 minutes before.
Like a Southampton win, something like that.
Just make sure we're not booned just beforehand. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, rolling along pretty nicely here. Not got too long to go for today's pods. Yeah, very quick turnaround. You get what you're given. Best captain this week. Anyone going to stop Salah, Sam? If this is the week to go against, I mean, the week just gone, as we discussed a little while ago in the game week reviews, both these players, Salah and Palmer, were basically irrelevant. And Salah performing was obviously great. Palmer performing was obviously great, but made, I don't know, maybe a 10-place difference to our overall ranks, even at our lowly ranks. I think you just go with the market here, don't you, as Captain Salah this week, despite the fact that Ipswich is on the table for Palmer.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong. I'm almost certainly going to be captaining Salah here, but he's just so unbelievably consistent. We say it every single week because he just keeps doing it. So what more can we possibly say at this point? He's not against a particularly strong opposition, even though it's away from home. And by the way, his underlying data is ever so slightly better away from home this season than at home, which I was fairly surprised by. Small sample sizes, all of that, but it's definitely not a downgrade having him away from home at the moment. And obviously West Ham, you would think he is more than capable of hauling yet again. So don't get me wrong, I will not be backing, almost certainly not be backing against Salah, but given his ownership and EO is going to be exceptionally high, it'll be 180 plus again, I would assume, up in the top million or two. There is an opportunity, and if you've got Haaland, I would honestly say that that's worth going for if you're chasing the pack against Leicester. I think that's a good opportunity. But also Cole Palmer, who is a huge flat track bully against promoted sides and weaker defences, could again be not a bad shout on a slightly lower EO. Now, obviously, most people do own both of these players, but I would imagine Palmer's effective ownership, because very few will actually captain him, will be up maybe around 105, 110% in the top ranks. So it could be one that if you fancy a big haul, then you could chance your arm on Palmer. But don't get me wrong, everything I said about Salah holds true. And that is almost certainly where I'll be putting the captaincy this week.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I just don't see the point of risking it, especially going in. You want to go into the new year on a green, so that's kind of where I would go. But if you see this an opportunity, then fair play to you. Right now, I just kind of look at it and think, I just don't really be going against that, especially given how Liverpool have been performing. So, yeah, can anything stop Salah? Not this week, I don't think. Maybe next week. we'll see it go the other way. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's at the point now where you look at it and just think, well, as I said a little while ago, when Alex and said to you last week as well, I'm just fine with it sticking on one player and then the rest of your team being where the gains are. I know you get more sort of more substantial gains from your captaincy going off, which may be where you look at it and think, okay, well, maybe I will go Palmer this week. But I quite like the fact that, you've got that EO vacuum like you had with the Haaland last year and the year before, and you can just concentrate on the rest of your team being set up nicely. It means you're not kind of, I guess, devoting transfers and devoting time to figuring out getting in the best captain choice every week. And I know that can also kind of paradoxically be a bit of a turn off for a lot of people when it comes to FPL, where you look at it and think, oh, well, everyone's captaining the same player, everyone's got a very similar team, but that can kind of just help kind of, I guess, steer your focus a bit towards, okay, where can I kind of optimize those edge pieces, and where are there a few maybe chances to be taken when it comes to buying in, particularly under owned players effectively, for good fixture runs coming up, which takes us nicely into our teams and plans for this week.
It does indeed, and I'm first up on this one. Haven't made any moves as of yet. Double Arsenal defence against Brentford away doesn't look great for a clean sheet, though, admittedly. In the back line, Robinson comes in at home to Bournemouth, West Ham away for Trent. In the midfield, Salah, predictably captain, Palmer vice, Mbeumo at home to Arsenal, and Ahmad currently starting at home to Newcastle. Backing Mbeumo in the home fixture, as always, again, the 90 minutes and the pens, although obviously there's a little bit of conflicting hopes between the Arsenal double clean sheet and Mbeumo there. I'm hoping at least one of the two pan out. And then up top, it's Isak, Pedro and Jackson, who I'm likely not going to be shuffling around at the moment. Now, the decision I do have to make revolves around benching. I've got Ahmad starting at home to Newcastle at the moment, but I do have Semenyo away at Fulham on the bench. I could feasibly start Semenyo away at Fulham, although Fulham defensively have been pretty good. Or I could actually make a move and bring in someone like an Ismail Assar, or even back to Morgan Rogers, who I slightly regret selling, although Villa's form's not the best. And maybe just starting either of those who have better fixtures than Ahmad does against Newcastle. But I'm trying now to put a slightly higher weighting on the value of a free transfer, knowing that we've got the assistant manager chip to come. We are getting into chip season relatively soon. So every time I see an opportunity to roll, I am going to try my best to do so and not massively try and tweak my side as soon as possible, as soon as there's any sort of issues. So with that in mind, I think I am quite likely to roll unless there's something big that pops up. If I was to make a transfer, it'd probably be Sar in for Semenyo and start Sar.
Yep, fair enough. Makes a lot of sense. I think I'm going to go the other way, actually. Me being me, and maybe start to just free up money where I possibly can. Because I'm at 0.0 with the moves I made last week, and I don't want Matoma anymore. A little bit different for you with João Pedro, where you're like, okay, well, I can play him, I could bench him, don't really care, I can deal with that. But Matoma, I think I've reached the end of the road with him. He's very, very annoying. And Ismail Assar is obviously there for the buying, and I will probably be doing that. In fact, I won't be doing it tonight. I don't think he's rising. I'll see if any information comes out tomorrow, but I'll definitely be doing that for this week. And then kind of, I think next week as well, then maybe look at from maybe Van Hecker to Anderson or Castagna as well, just to eke out even more money effectively ahead of that season going forward. Only real dilemma for me this week, I suppose, is I've got basically the 11th man, Sam. It's Mykolenko, Hall, Ahmad, or maybe the 10th, 11th men. Mykolenko, Hall, Ahmad, and Jimenez. I don't really know which of those two to play at the moment. I've got Mykolenko at home against Forest, thinking that's kind of one of those kind of 0-0 games potentially on the pitch, starting over Hall, and because I'm not playing Hall, therefore it means I'm interested. I probably will play Ahmad, who didn't play very well in the last game, but does do fairly decent underlying numbers. Don't know how much Bruno is going to impact that. We shall see. Maybe there'll be a kind of some sort of synergy that appears without Bruno hogging the ball all the time for United. But yeah, we will see about that. But I quite like the idea of just having both attacking players, Ahmad and Isaac in that game, bench of a defender. And having spoken to the Fulham Oracle, I probably will leave Raul on the bench this week, just because I know, again, Ahmad was probably going to start that game, whereas I don't know if Raul will, and I kind of just prefer just throwing Mykolenko in. Of course, Hall will keep clean sheet, and Mykolenko, after benching millions of clean sheets, won't keep one against Nottingham Forest, but I feel like that's the way to go here. So yeah, a bit of a 3-5-2.
Yeah, I like it, and I think for what it's worth, if I had Mitoma, I probably would downgrade to Sarr, given he came off early today, and I think you've also got the benching order correct too. So no complaints from me on this. It's a good looking side, and hopefully for you, it's back inside the top 500k and another green arrow.
Yeah, I'll do that, and then probably just try to figure out. Robinson, because I saw Robinson, right, and everyone's going to own him this week and next week. Hopefully Bournemouth do show up against Fulham, and that'll be a tough game if they keep a clean sheet. And ouch, that's going to really hurt me if Mykolenko doesn't do one. So I may be looking at getting Anderson something in the week after. But hey, there we go. Really straightforward this week, I think. We say that, and yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Very, very short turnaround pod, just because this has got a day shelf life before it all comes around again. Such the beauty of this time of year.
Unbelievable. And for the first time ever, I think we are actually wrapping up the show before full time of the final game of the game week. So we'll see how that pans out. Hopefully the clean sheet holds, but by the time you're listening to this, it probably has fallen and we've both gotten slight red arrows from that. In the meantime, though, we've really enjoyed the show and making it for you. I hope you have enjoyed listening to, I believe, the last WGTA of 2024, as Tom will confirm in a moment. Thank you all so much for listening. We have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at WGTA or myself at FPL Pricey. WGTA_FPL or FPL Pricey on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Instagram and Threads, it's WGTA.FPL and again, FPL Pricey on there. If you did enjoy the pod, if you could please do one or all of the following, including following us on those social channels, giving the pod a 5-star rating on wherever you're listening to it. And of course, if you're watching along on YouTube at any point, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that's also really, really helpful. Anyway, Happy New Year to all of you listening. And thanks again, Tom. I'll see you in 2025.
Yep, thanks very much, Sam. Thanks very much all for listening and watching. Hope you enjoyed the pod. Hope we assisted you for the upcoming game week and indeed throughout 2024. We'll be back on New Year's Day. Happy New Year. Speak to you very, very soon.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.